All right, so maybe you're thinking about grabbing some Newmont stock in 2025.
Hmm.
Well, this deep dive could give you some things to think about.
Yeah.
We're looking at a Newmont press release
Okay.
from November 18th, 2024, just came out, and might have some info for investors.
Definitely some interesting stuff for investors to consider in this one.
Yeah, you're right about that.
For sure.
It announces that they're selling off their Musselwhite mine.
Right.
And this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
It really signals a shift.
Yeah, it really does seem like part of a bigger change they're making.
So Newmont selling its Musselwhite mine in Ontario
Yep.
to Orla Mining for a lot of money,
A lot.
up to $850 million.
Wow. Yeah, that's not small potatoes.
No, it's not.
Yeah. $110 million of that is upfront cash.
Okay.
Plus, there's another potential $40 million,
Mhm.
depending on if gold prices hit certain targets
Interesting.
in the 2 years after the sale closes.
Gotcha.
And that closing is expected Q1 2025.
Okay.
If everything goes smoothly, the
Mhm.
usual conditions.
Yeah, the usual stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So Newmont is going to have a lot more cash on hand.
Right. A pretty big influx of cash coming their way.
But this isn't just a one-off thing.
No, you're right to point that out.
This Musselwhite sale is part of something bigger.
It is.
It's like this divestiture program they've been doing all year.
Yeah, Newmont has been actively selling off what they're calling non-core assets.
Okay, non-core assets.
Yeah, throughout 2024. So this wave of sales,
Hmm.
including Musselwhite and the others they mentioned in this press release, like Telfer, Haviron, and Akiem.
Okay.
Altogether, those could bring in almost $3 billion by early 2025.
Wow.
And that's on top of the over $500 million they already made from earlier sales this year.
That's a lot of change.
It is.
Makes you wonder what their plan is.
Right. What are they going to do with all that money?
Yeah, what are they doing?
Where are they headed?
And most importantly, what does this mean for someone thinking about buying their stock in 2025?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
The million-dollar question.
Isn't it?
It is.
Newmont has actually been pretty clear about their plans for the cash.
Okay, so what are they saying?
They've said they want to use it to strengthen their balance sheet,
Which means,
reducing their debt.
okay, less debt. Makes sense.
And they also want to return some of that capital directly to shareholders
How so?
through share buybacks.
Those are two things that investors usually like to see.
They do, yeah. Less debt means more stability.
And buybacks often push up stock prices.
Exactly. So this two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
It's pretty common after big asset sales like this one.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty attractive to investors, but
It does make you think about their long-term strategy,
it does.
especially for someone looking at their stock in 2025.
Yeah, it's definitely raises some questions about what their long game is here.
Right, because
Yeah.
Newmont has this $3 billion share buyback program.
Right.
It's authorized through October 2026. And as of this press release, they've already bought back $1.1 billion in shares.
That's right. Share buybacks can be a good way to give value back to shareholders.
Okay.
Because by reducing the number of shares out there,
Huh?
the value of each remaining share should theoretically go up.
Makes sense.
It's a way to reward current investors
Okay.
and potentially attract new ones.
But some analysts argue
Yeah.
that maybe putting that money back into the business,
Hmm.
like through exploration or new technology,
Okay.
maybe that would create more value in the long run.
That's a good point.
What do you think?
Especially with Newmont potentially selling off assets that could have fueled future growth.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a valid point and something any potential investor should consider.
Right.
Buybacks can boost stock prices in the short term,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily guarantee long-term growth.
So the big question is,
Yeah, what's the big question?
are these buybacks costing them future opportunities?
Hmm.
Are they saying they don't think they can find new profitable ventures?
Especially with all these divestitures.
Yeah,
It's something potential investors need to think about carefully.
for sure. A lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, so we've talked about how Newmont is making these big changes.
Right.
They're getting a ton of cash,
Mhm.
and they're using it to pay down debt and buy back shares.
Exactly.
But this whole non-core assets thing,
Uh-huh.
it keeps coming back to me.
Yeah,
What does that even mean?
right.
Like, what makes something non-core to Newmont?
It's a good question.
And how does that affect how we look at them
Yeah,
as a potential investment in 2025?
that's really the key question here.
It is.
It goes beyond just the numbers.
Okay.
When a company like Newmont calls an asset non-core,
Mm-hmm.
It usually means it doesn't fit into their long-term plan or their ideal portfolio.
Okay.
It's not just about getting rid of things that aren't performing well.
So it's more than that.
It's often about changing priorities.
So it's less about bad assets
Yeah,
and more about assets that don't fit with their strategy.
exactly.
It makes me wonder,
Yeah.
what are some of the reasons something might be considered non-core? Does it mean they're changing their geographic focus?
Could be.
Like moving away from certain types of mining?
Possibly.
Or maybe
Yeah.
even responding to changes in the global gold market?
You're hitting on some key points there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of possible reasons.
Like what?
Maybe these assets are smaller mines with lower production
Makes sense.
compared to their bigger, more profitable operations. Or maybe they're in places where Newmont wants to reduce their presence for political reasons, environmental, logistical, who knows?
Or maybe.
Yeah, or maybe.
And this is important for someone looking at their stock in 2025.
It is.
Maybe they're selling assets that don't fit into their long-term view of the gold market.
That's a real possibility.
So it's about them focusing on what they see as their best operations.
Their strongest.
Most profitable. And by getting rid of these non-core things,
Right?
they're freeing up that capital to put it back into other areas.
It's better aligned with their vision.
On the surface, seems like a good move for investors.
It could be.
They're
Yeah.
becoming more efficient
Streamlining.
and theoretically creating more value.
At least in the short term, it can be a positive signal.
Okay.
It shows they're actively managing their portfolio, trying to get the most value for their shareholders.
But like we said earlier,
Yeah,
there are downsides to think about.
there are.
Are they giving up future growth?
By selling off these assets.
Yeah. Are they missing opportunities?
Right. Opportunities that might be more valuable later.
Especially in a market like gold.
Yeah, gold can be unpredictable.
It can.
So it's a tough question.
It is.
It's a balancing act.
You want to be efficient,
Right.
but you don't want to hurt your ability to grow in the future.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there who are thinking about buying Newmont in 2025,
Yeah.
how do they weigh all these factors?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
How do you know if Newmont is making the right long-term decisions? There's no easy answer. It's exactly the kind of analysis investors need to do.
What do you mean?
They need to look past the immediate gains from these sales and really dig into Newmont's vision for the future.
Okay.
What are their plans?
What's next for them?
Yeah, where do they see the biggest growth potential in gold? Are they investing in new technology, exploring new regions, or focusing on their existing high-performing assets?
So it's about looking beyond the headlines.
It is.
Trying to figure out the why behind their actions.
Exactly.
Are they trying to just maximize profits right now?
Yeah.
Or are they setting themselves up for long-term success?
That's the big question.
It is.
And that's where a deep dive like this can be helpful. We're not just looking at what they're doing,
Right.
we're trying to understand why they're doing it.
And for someone thinking about investing in 2025,
Yeah.
understanding the why.
Is crucial.
It is.
It helps you decide if Newmont is a company worth betting on.
Yeah, for the long haul.
Exactly.
And we can't forget,
What's that?
Newmont's success
Yeah.
is tied to the gold market.
Of course.
Understanding what drives gold prices.
Up and down is essential for making smart investment decisions.
So true.
It all comes back to gold in the end.
It does.
Can't talk about Newmont's future without talking about the future of gold.
And that adds another layer of complexity.
It does.
Which brings us to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored the
Yeah.
why of Newmont's strategy,
Uh-huh.
but now we need to talk about the how.
How?
How will these decisions play out
Yeah. How will all of this actually affect things?
in the bigger gold market? And what does that mean for someone looking at Newmont stock in 2025?
That's what we'll get into next.
Sure. All right, let's talk gold market.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
We can't really talk about investing in a gold company
Right.
without thinking about the big picture. You know?
The bigger forces at play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the outlook for gold?
Mm.
Looking ahead to 2025,
Right.
what factors could impact its price?
And by extension, Newmont's performance.
Yeah, exactly. It's all connected.
It is.
Feels like we need a crystal ball here.
Well, predicting the future of any market is tough,
Yeah,
especially one as volatile as gold.
true. Very true.
But we can look at some key trends,
Okay.
things that might be driving things in 2025.
Like what?
Like inflation.
Right. Inflation.
Not always a big factor with gold.
Yeah, because gold is often seen as a hedge against inflation.
Exactly.
When inflation's up,
Uh-huh.
the buying power of regular currencies goes down,
Right.
and investors often turn to gold.
As a safe haven.
So if inflation is still a worry in 2025,
Yeah.
could see more demand for gold.
Potentially.
Good for Newmont? Maybe?
Maybe, but it's not that straightforward.
Okay.
There are other things that can impact gold prices.
Even with inflation?
Even with high inflation, yeah.
But-
Like interest rates.
Oh,
Big influence.
How so?
Well, when interest rates go up,
Mm-hmm.
holding gold, which doesn't own interest,
Yeah,
becomes less attractive.
compared to other investments.
Right.
So even if inflation pushes people towards gold,
Mm-hmm.
rising interest rates could work against that.
They could.
Investors have to watch both trends.
Absolutely. You've got to keep an eye on both.
And then there's,
There are always other variables too, like
Well-
geopolitical uncertainty.
right,
That's a big one.
because
Gold often gets more popular
Uh-huh.
when things are unstable globally.
makes sense.
Investors look for safer assets.
Yeah, we've seen that happen over and over.
Yeah, throughout history.
War, politics, economic uncertainty
Any kind of instability.
sends people running to gold.
It does.
So if geopolitical tensions are high in 2025,
Mhm.
that could really boost gold prices.
It's definitely possible.
But on the flip side,
Yeah.
if things are calm,
If the world is relatively stable,
yeah,
the demand for gold as a safe haven
might go down.
might decrease. Yeah.
It's about
It's a
understanding
little dynamic.
and how they impact investors.
Exactly.
This is complicated.
It is a bit of a complex puzzle.
Lots of moving parts.
There are.
So for someone specifically thinking about Newmont stock in 2025,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway here?
When it comes to the gold market,
Yeah, the gold market.
I'd say this
Oh.
Newmont's performance,
Mhm.
like any gold company,
Yeah.
is tied to the price of gold.
Of course.
Understanding what drives gold prices
Yeah.
is so important for making good decisions.
Don't just look at the company's financials.
Right. You need to be aware of the bigger picture,
The economic landscape.
the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah, everything that might shape the gold market in 2025.
It's about seeing the whole picture.
Well said.
Thanks.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have?
Musselwhite mine sale.
Yeah.
Newmont's divestiture strategy.
What makes an asset non-core?
Right.
The gold market.
It's clear that Newmont is making some big moves,
They are?
and there's a lot for potential investors to think about.
Especially with 2025 in mind.
Definitely a lot to consider,
There are.
both potential benefits and risks.
Right. Will this streamlining lead to growth?
Or will these divestitures hurt them later on?
And how will it all play out with the gold market?
Big questions.
They are.
But that's what makes investing so interesting.
It is.
Analyzing information,
Assessing risks.
making decisions that match your goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with this.
Okay.
Newmont is making changes
Creating opportunities
and challenges.
for investors.
The key is to weigh those factors carefully.
Hmm.
Decide if Newmont is right for you.
In 2025,
Do your research,
know your goals
your risk tolerance.
and make an informed decision.
Well said.
Happy investing, everyone.
And with that, we're done.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Newmont's future.